are these people?
Collin, you were wondering what this is about, and
yes,
you might be afraidies tonight. So you can't sleep. Hopefully, it will not provide you with too much nightmare fuel. Nah, it won't be that bad. But terrible news, everyone. Robot that watched surgery videos performs with skill of human doctor, says Jill Rosen at the Johns Hopkins University. Johns Hopkins. Johns.
Yes.
Johns. Yes. Have you seen this? Because I didn't see this anywhere else. This was kept kind of quiet.
No, but you're the one that will pull this shit. So
yes, I find them, and sometimes they come up later in about like 2 years, and then we're like, oh yeah, we remember. But a robot trained for the first time by watching videos of seasoned surgeons executed the same surgical procedures as skillfully as the human doctors. Again, says Johns Hopkins, who I think did the study. Right? So keep that in mind as we continue to read where the biases might lie in this story. Okay? The successful use of imitation, learning to train surgical robots, eliminates the need to program robots with each individual move required during a medical procedure, and brings the field of robotic surgery closer to true autonomy, where robots could perform complex surgeries without human help. The findings, led by Johns Hopkins University researchers, are being spotlighted this week at the Conference on Robot Learning in Munich, a top event for robotics and machine learning. So expect more nightmare fuel coming in the next weeks. Because that's what that's going to be. The Conference on Robot Learning. So it's really magical to have this model, and all we do is feed it camera input, and it can predict the robotic movements needed for surgery, said senior author Alex Krieger, an assistant professor in GHU's Department of Medical Engineering, and definitely does not sound like an evil scientist. Axel Krieger definitely doesn't sound like an evil scientist. Sorry. Like if I was writing a comic book that I needed a evil scientist, I would name them Alex Krieger. Anyway, I digress. He says, we believe this marks a significant step forward toward a new frontier in medical robotics. Camera video.
Oh no.
So this is the surgical robot. Right. So it watched doctors do sutures, right? So they're trying to equate that, like, even if it messed up, it figured stuff out on its own. Right? So, like, even if it didn't follow the procedures, it watched closely. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it's able to, like, pick up the needles, you know. So like they're just saying it could do it in different training environments. It trained on silicone suture pads, but if the environment changes, it's fine. Right? This, you know, we can now mess with our new robot overlord and make it mess up. So, I mean, this is just surgical robots. This is pretty standard stuff these days, you know? But the key factor being this newfound, they are watching like how-to surgery on YouTube and then doing surgery. So how does this make you feel?
Pretty much. Well, to be fair, just for people who didn't see it, they were using it on meat, not humans.
Yes.
Like, I think it was like
or silicone.
Or silicone.
Yes.
Yeah. So they weren't using that on human flesh
yet. But they, I mean, surgical robots are used plenty. That's a pretty standard thing. Usually it's like operated by a surgeon because theoretically
Right, but
those
that's
tiny
the
little
thing. It's
hands.
like right, that's the thing. It's usually like a surgeon who's controlling it or at
Yes.
least programmed to
Right.
do what you want it to do. This sounds like you said in the article it's autonomous. So the robot is essentially doing the work.
Yes.
So it's like
But Collin, it watched a video of a surgeon did do
I
the
mean
procedure and then making decisions. Yes. Not
I
not
mean that
ideal.
almost sounds like I can do that. Almost.
Well,
Like
I hate to tell the medical students in the, but that's kind of what they do too. They're looking up
right,
YouTube
but yeah, but like
appendicitis operation.
right, like,
You know,
but this is the danger of AI. It's like
yeah,
I mean, we've talked about this as far as art, but I don't think we've kind of talked about it in terms of other industries as well, but I wouldn't necessarily thought about it in the medical field. Like it essentially in a way, if this gets good or good enough, that will just make surgeons almost obsolete. Like, especially like with the human factor of things going wrong. Like a robot doesn't have that type of, complexity, I would argue.
yeah,
So it so on one hand you can make the argument of oh, like human error, like um, might cause a mistake, which could be fatal, which yeah, I could definitely buy that idea, but also
right,
it's a robot. Like
yep.
just with the software or whatever, there's a lot of shit to me that can easily go wrong with that too.
So
So
I'll get to, so let's continue a bit and I'll get to the kicker for me. So the team, which included Stanford University researchers, used imitation learning to train the Da Vinci surgical system robot to perform these fundamental tasks required in surgical procedures: manipulating a needle, lifting body tissue, and suturing. In each case, the robot trained on the team's model performed the same surgical procedures as skillfully as human doctor, quote unquote. The model combined imitation learning with the same machine learning architecture that underpins ChatGPT. However, where ChatGPT works with words and text, this model speaks robot with kinematics, a language that breaks down the angles of robotic motion into math. Right? So the researchers fed their models hundreds of videos recorded from wrist cameras placed on the arms of Da Vinci robots during surgical procedures. These videos, recorded by surgeons all over the world, are used for post operative analysis and then archived. Nearly 7,000 Da Vinci robots are used worldwide, and more than 50,000 surgeons are trained on the system, creating a large archive of data for robots to imitate. While the Da Vinci system is widely used, researchers say it's notoriously imprecise, but the team found a way to make the flawed input work. The key was training the model to perform relative movements rather than absolute actions, which are inaccurate. All we need is image input, and then this AI system finds the right action, said lead author Ji Woong Breen Kim, a postdoctoral researcher at Johns Hopkins. We find that even with 100 demos, the model is able to learn the procedure and generalize new environments it hasn't encountered. See, we're starting to get to the machine learning side of this, right?
right.
So, again, New Frontier, all that stuff, Alex Krieger. But Krieger also said the model is so good learning things we haven't taught it. Like if it drops the needle, it will automatically pick it up and continue. This isn't something I taught it to do.
That's scary.
That's fucking
Like
terrifying.
what is that science?
Right. If it
Like
learns to pick up the needle by itself, what else with the needle does it fucking willing to try? You
right.
know, how do you define that? Like, Jesus Christ. Anyway, the model could be used to quickly train a robot to perform any type of surgical procedure. The researchers said the team is now using imitation learning to train a robot to perform not just small surgical tasks, but a full surgery.
Of course.
Before this advancement, programming a robot to perform even a simple aspect of a surgery required hand coding every step. Someone might spend a decade trying to model suturing, Krieger said, and that's suturing for just one type of surgery. It's very limiting, Krieger said. What is new here is we only have to collect imitation learning of different procedures, and we can train a robot to learn it in a couple of days. It allows us to accelerate to the goal of autonomy while reducing medical errors and achieving more accurate surgery. So, yeah. Any thoughts?
Hopefully I will never get surgery by a robot.
I
Hopefully I
mean,
just never get surgery. Like, maybe for like a minor procedure, I feel, but a major one, like, you know. But as he said, if the robot is able, like, has that type of what do you call it? Like sentience. Essentially, that's kind of what it's not that, but it is that in a sense.
yes.
Because
I should find that thing, but
yeah, but if the robot is capable to think on its own to pick up the damn needle if it drops on the floor,
right.
like, but even with that, like, I'm even like, why would a robot drop it at all? That's kind of like another thing. But
Well, I mean, that's the thing is that they're trying to get it to, like, a lot of things that they were working on were putting it into environments that it hadn't already been before, right? So it's like, okay, you trained this on like silicone, you watched it being done on silicone, but if we give you like work, can you do it there? Right? If we've never trained you on any of that. Like, that's a lot of it, right? So the degree of autonomy may not be, and of course it's monitored, and I'm sure there's someone with a big red button somewhere, hopefully. I've always been torn on this because theoretically, with enough data, like, you could generally make those. These are already being used in surgery with pretty decent results, from what I've seen.
Sure, but
Like,
again, that's the idea of like,
it's just now a robot is mimicking the motions of a,
and essentially almost making decisions.
Well,
So
theoretically, it could do that better than a human. Human has a ton of limiting factors in this. Whereas, the issue is when that robot decides that these numbers are better, like if it's making decisions on humans' lives, which we are already expecting things like robot cars to do, right? Like the robot cars has to literally play the trolley problem, right? Do I run into the wife with a baby stroller or, the group of small children?
I am not a
Like,
Trekkie, but I do remember, and unfortunately, it's not the right series, but Star Trek Voyager,
yeah,
like, where the Doctor had. Now, keep in mind, the Doctor goes, you're not Trekkie,
he's
like
a
the Doctor is
hologram.
hologram, but
He's fake.
he had the choice. He had the choice of like he had to do surgery, but he can only say like it was between like um like one of the main cast of members of the show and just a random extra, you know. So like
Right,
so he chose uh, like the ensemble cast member, you know, the character.
right,
But the other person died, you know, because he can only perform the surgery on one of them at a time. So he chose his friend first, and then the other one died. And then like the idea, like he just went into a tailspin of guilt that Captain Janeway basically had to delete that memory
Right.
from him so that he wouldn't kind of spiral. So it's kind of like this similar idea of like, you know, if the robot has to make that kind of choice, like what is the implications of that? Like now, granted, the hologram, like the Doctor in the series, basically was more human-like in that regard.
Yeah.
But so that's kind of where I'm kind of wondering, will there be that
You watched the
human
TNG
component?
What Makes a Man episode or whatever,
Right.
where they have Data on trial. Do you watch that one?
Mm-mm.
That one's a good one in this regard too, because essentially like it's Picard arguing with, to say that Data is more human than machine because he meets all these qualifications for sentience.
Right.
But I don't know.
But
It's complicated. To me, this is it pushes so much with if a robot is doing it and AI is doing it, how is it not free to the public if we can subsidize that technology properly, effectively, and make it safe for the people, which we have the ability to do. We did go to the moon, supposedly. Like to me, that kind of thing is worth. I don't know. It's complicated. It's like
yeah,
clearly there's bodily autonomy issues, and then who's now you can theoretically sue a human a human surgeon for what do they call that,
malpractice.
malpractice. Like, could you do that to your like, would it then be Da Vinci's problem? Right? Would you
Probably.
sue the company to be like class action? Because like that happens
Right.
now. Like right now, there's a ton of autonomy in surgery and stuff like that. Like they don't want to have to like do a fucking perfect like slice or X-ray or whatever. So their computers are doing a lot of that. So I don't know. This is the thing, is that when AI was first pushed as a thing, it was for stuff like this and for stuff like, being able to find cures for cancer and things like that by looking at like DNA sequencing and things like that. So, which then we get to CRISPR and fun things like that. But yeah, I don't know. Definitely isn't like lets me sleep any easier about it. So,
No.
But
I mean, I'd rather not think about that right now, but I think the implications of this, I think, need to be explored more. But I think definitely, yeah, you can have data, but
yep.
but that's missing in of itself the human element, like the
Well,
personality and all, like of the being behind the data.
well, and
Like,
this is also now you're
so
realizing why a lot of resources right now are, our resource wars are changing locations to places with lithium and power production, right? All the stuff that AI and computing and technology, all those minerals we need for that are becoming more important. So, like all foreign powers are working on this because it's like it's an effective tool,
sure,
So, and we may not understand its complete power at this point. So, it's like the thing that every science fiction show has ever warned us of. But whatever, it's gonna be fine. It'll be fine. It couldn't possibly come back to. It's. See, people forget the Terminator. The way to beat a Terminator is to have another Terminator. That's the way they always beat the Terminators. you know? So get those robotics teams out, kids. I'm just saying, we're going to need our own robo dogs. So, but anyway, talking about these things is why we're demonetized. I guarantee it. So scan that QR code on your screen or with your third eyeballs that you put in. But, you know, you can always go to that URL down here, ko-fi.com/indienewsnetwork. Give us a little dollary due. But if you can't do that, like and subscribe, hit the share button, leave a comment, let us know what you think. Are you as terrified as we are? I hope not. I hope so. We're gonna need help. Help us. Help us. We're stuck in this crazy world. Get us out of here. Help. Anyway, help us get to 3K. Thanks for watching.